Hey guys, it's Kenya here at the St. John Clark Pain Treatment Center, and I wanted to bring you some quick takeaways from our first Kids Day. Our topic was tech neck, and we want to show you some positioning that you can do for your children at home when they're watching TV, if they have an iPad, or as they're seated for their virtual schooling, which a lot of children are going to be doing. And so we're excited to show you some positioning, show you how you can be creative and help these babies stay balanced and stay well. So I want to introduce you to one of our littlest patients, and this is Ariel Grace. Say hi.
Hi.
And Ariel's going to be our model for how we should position our children during their schooling sessions. And one of the things that we have to consider is that a lot of parents don't have the setup, especially if the children were being homeschooled or didn't already have a setup at home, for a correct positioning for a child. And so what a lot of parents will do when the children are at home is that they'll put the kids at a dining room table, or they'll say, here, use my desk for now, to try to facilitate the learning for the child. But I want to bring up some points of how that could negatively affect the child in the long term if the positioning is off, right? And so we consider those things as adults. Is my chair ergonomically correct? We've heard that term many times in offices and things like that. But for children, we don't consider that because children are so flexible and they lay all over the place. But it's so important for them to maintain that balance and that structure. And so I want to show you how to do that and how to position them properly. So with Gracie, this is just a regular computer chair. A lot of people, I have one of these at home actually. It's probably the exact same kind. And so a lot of people have a computer chair and a desk at home. But with this computer chair, because it's set up for adults, is that it's improperly set up for a child. And I want to show you why. Her little knee is already, it's not actually able to be in a neutral position, right? In order to be neutral, she'd have to come way out here. But because she's not able to do that, she has to sit back. Go ahead and sit back, baby. And so it leaves her legs in an extended position, which is not ideal for a long term. And her feet are hanging off of the edge too. And so again, not ideal for positioning of the child. I want to show you here one of the main concerns with a chair like this, especially that provides lumbar support for adults, is that it's not going to actually lay appropriately on a child. The lumbar support should be here for the child, and this is actually extending her thoracic spine, causing a distortion that's unnecessary and that could lead to further problems in their structure. And so this is not ideal for a child. I would not put my child, this is my child, I would not put my child in this setup to do schoolwork for hours at a time. It's not ideal. And so because a lot of parents don't necessarily have a setup, we want to show you how you can be inventive and create a safe, more properly positioned space for your child to be able to do their schooling and to be able to thrive in this coming year. And so first I want to talk about positioning on the computer, right? And so what we have to consider with the child is outside of the chair, which we already discussed, this is an improper chair for her, is the eyesight too, right? We don't want the children having to look up at the desktop. If it's a desktop and she's really low and she's having to look up, that's going to cause a lot of strain to the eyes. If she has to look down, obviously we're trying to avoid that forward head posture like we talked about, anything that shortens these muscles. And if you see in this position, because the headrest and the lumbar spine in the incorrect position, it forces her chin already in a shortened position. Now her head is not coming forward necessarily, but she's still tightening all of the musculature in the front of the neck. That's when she moves away from the chair. When she moves away from the chair and that tension remains, what's going to develop here is a forward head posture, because then her little eyes are going to go whoop. And now the positioning is all wrong, right? Here's her shoulder, her ears forward, her neck is all tight. And so this is just really, really detrimental for adults, especially for children, because they don't necessarily have the musculature to be able to balance that. All right. And so when these muscles get tight, because they don't have the strength in the back musculature, they can't counter and balance themselves, and they end up kind of stuck here. And it can exacerbate a number of conditions. One of them being mouth breathing, right? Have you ever heard of mouth breathing where the mandible kind of retracts and the child is left with like a protruding maxilla? And so they end up sort of in this position. right? And that position all alone, when it starts changing the occlusion or the bite, I mean, that's a whole plethora of another issue, right? You're going to need orthodontic care. You're going to have to figure out how to get that change to happen. And so also migraines for children, right? Because like I said, when they're in this position, these muscles back here called the suboccipitals have to crank, 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 crank to bring her little head back up. And these muscles have big trigger points to headaches and migraines in adults and children. And so because we want to set them up for success, we want to make sure that they're not getting headaches, that they're not getting blurry vision, that it's already going to be challenging for children to be at home and to be working, because children at home, that's their safe space, that's where they play. And so trying to really set them up properly is going to give them the best advantage, right? We don't want any headaches, we don't want any brain fog, any confusion, anything like that. And so I want to show you some ways that we can be inventive, like we said. And now this is just an end table. If you have a night table or a sofa table, one of those end tables, this is something simple that you can just grab from somewhere. Maybe you have one in the garage. Go ahead and sit down. And now this stool, this is just a regular stepping stool, and it was actually a little too short for her. And I want to show you what. Go ahead and sit down, baby. See, she's a little too bent here. And so I like her in a little bit of more neutral position. So I kind of want to lift her up a little bit. I want to lift her up for that. And I also want to lift her up for the screen. And so I'm just going to take a book. I'm just going to go ahead and stand up, baby. And I'm going to prop her up. And now, go ahead and sit. That really allows for a much more neutral position there. Okay. Now this stool is not ideal. You want something with a back support. So something like one of those kid chairs or something with a back support would be best. But in this case, I just want to show you that a stool or something will give you the right positioning for the legs. And so with a laptop, so if they're using a laptop, one of the things that you want to make sure, like I said with the desktop, is that it's not too high and it's not too low. So for her, that's about eye level. Actually, it's a little low, because if you're looking, she's having to come look this way. And so I'm going to just elevate this some. Okay, and now that's a much more neutral position for her. And so somebody, I think I bought this, oh gosh, IKEA or something. Be inventive. If you need a book, if you need a second book or whatever to prop up, if they're using an iPad, here's a position that children commonly do that we want to avoid. Now with an iPad, a position I see a lot of children in is that they get comfy in a chair and then they just kind of point their little chin down to stare at their iPad. Ariel, baby, come over here. And so this positioning right here, I see it at the grocery store, I see it at the doctor's office. And so this positioning right here really shortens all of this. It causes a lot of strain in these suboccipitals. And these suboccipitals also attach to the first vertebrae after the cranium, so your first cervical vertebrae. And if there's a lot of pressure here, it can even cause the C1 to rotate. Now, a rotation of C1 can lead to a reduction of blood flow in the brain. And a reduction of blood flow always leads to a reduction of function. And so when we don't have proper blood flow, we don't have proper function. So if your child's dealing with irritability, brain fog, symptoms of ADHD, they're having headaches, all blurry visions, anything like that, as they're trying to do their schoolwork and they're complaining of these things, you're going to want to consider, is this the culprit? Is there something in their structure, in their positioning, in the way they're carrying their body that's exacerbating these conditions? And so we all love our children, we want the best for our children, and so we really want to give them the best start. And these things matter. They matter a lot, especially leading to the proper blood flow of the brain. I mean, it's crucial, right? A little neck tightness leads to a lot of other issues. And so really don't want to see children like this. If they're like this for a little bit, go ahead and put your chin down. If they're like this for short periods of time, then it's not a big deal. But ideally, we want to get kids out of this position, out of a grown-up chair, and into a proper seated position for them. That's going to allow the chin to be upright. Go ahead and take your little legs down, baby girl. All right, no, sit back. Yeah, and so this is, again, not a correct chair for her, but she's going to want to bring the iPad up. Now, again, your child doesn't need to hold the iPad. So if you ideally, you can prop the actual device up, that's going to avoid some strain on the shoulders, some strain on the lats, some strain on some of the other musculature. But this is crucial for them to have all of the space they need here for proper breathing, proper function, and all of that. And so, guys, if you have any questions, if you're like, well, when my child stands, he's already in this position, she's already in this position, then come see us. It's what we do. We love treating the babies. We have a day set up for them. We're going to have balloons and things like that. But come see us the rest of the months too. If that day doesn't work for you, we do have special discounts on that day. But if those days don't work for you on that month, then understand the kids are always welcome here. We're excited to treat them. We're excited to restore their function, to restore the balance to their little bodies. And we look forward to helping you any way we can.